Hello everyone, and welcome to our club, My Life, My Business, and our event, Wish I Was Here, pointing once again to being present in your own life, living your own life, and not wishing to be in somebody else's life. And so today I just want to. Oh, hi, Shanaz.
Hi, Vay.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you very much.
That's right.
So yes, today I was thinking that perhaps I'm going to do a bit of a testimonial and briefly just talk a little bit about my leadership journey. And the reason for this is that so many times, we when we think about leadership, many people say, sure, some leaders are born very difficult to teach leadership, and so we sometimes get confused between uh, management and leadership. And so for the sake of this conversation, just broadly speaking, I mean, you might have the title of manager, and many of the activities around that title of manager would typically focus on planning, organizing, but a lot of it centers on control. Um, from a resourcing point of view. So there you have the actual things like equipment, stock, etc. And then employee hours and inputs and sometimes focus on outputs and so on. But there is an important component to that, which is the leading bit. All right. So the distinction here from being a manager is inspiring, motivating others to achieve their own set of goals. And while at the same time getting them aligned to buy into a vision and a goal of your organization, whatever that organization might be. And so, many times, um, when I reflect on my life, it's quite interesting um, that a lot of this is quite simply put your ability really to be able to inspire yourself and therefore inspiring others. And I've been saying this in so many different ways. I've said the same thing. I spoke about energy leadership at one stage, and a lot of the filters and frameworks I use within a leadership um, context would be around the central theme is that, everyone is a leader, whether you lead by default or whether you lead by choice, but everyone is a leader. So it's around the consciousness of how you lead yourself and how you therefore lead others. But I just wanted to share really a bit of a testimony, and hopefully this might resonate. It might not. I'm sure Shanaz will be telling me what works, what does not work. Um, but here goes. As a 12-year-old in primary school, then we call it standard 5. I'm revealing my age, but these days it's grade 8. There I was, shy, introverted, could barely string my sentences together when I was in the presence of people of authority, and also, strangers. I had a particular problem conversing with the opposite sex at that stage. And as we called it at that stage, these days, the pronouns need to be chosen. But anyway, in my case, as I was growing up, that's the way I looked at it. So as a shy, introverted type of person, not the life of the party and so forth, had okay academic results, played a bit of sport, played a little bit of soccer, played rugby and so forth. But, not one of those um, popular type of people. And way to my surprise, this 12-year-old was selected from amongst the prefects to be the head boy in that year. And I can tell you, I nearly died. I was so frightened because, I had to learn a couple of things and I had to come up with my first speech. And that was one of the first things that caused sleepless nights. But before then, I had to learn how to interpret instructions and school strategy, and to be able to communicate that to the rest of the prefects and so forth. And that was something that I learned. Now, upon reflection, so communication there was key. The speech had to happen at the end of the year, at the end of the year function. And I don't know why I remember this so clearly, is that my mom, bless her heart, bought me this fantastic shirt. It was like a Hawaiian type brown shirt and a blue pants. I delivered my speech in that way, dressed like that. But I remember how, when I delivered that speech, how my eyes glazed over and I lost sight of who was in the room, desperate to deliver this memorized speech. But then the ice was broken. So when I think about that stage of my life, my very young life, I have to ask myself, so what was the learning? You know, yes, Shanaz, it was brown and blue, and uh, I had to, for me, was overcoming stage fright and being able to sound reasonably articulate. Well, forward to when I was 15 years old, in grade 10, and belonged to a drama club called the Talent Seekers. And I was elected onto the committee and, performed the function as a treasurer. Now, why I bring this up, I think it's one of the key components of being a leader is to be able to say no. And so, therefore, literally managing the club's purse strings, I had to learn how to say no. And I discovered very quickly, when you do say no to people, you become temporarily unpopular. Well, I say temporarily because, we were young then, so we didn't carry grudges, but very unhappy people who wanted to spend, and I said no. But I learned at that age, at 15, that I had to say no because of the responsibility, and you needed to take a longer term view in terms of running the club. So I had to deal, therefore, with unpopularity, because this is the thing that even with adults placed in management positions and therefore having a form of leadership, that desire not to be rejected is sort of inherently bred in us, and it really takes focus and the ability to lead yourself and understand what the greater goal is, understand what a bigger picture is, and rather do what's best, do what's right, than doing what's popular at that stage. So fast forward again another 2 years. I was 17 in grade 12, and again I found myself as a head boy. So this was now not unfamiliar territory, because I had my first experience in primary school, and I guess I have to, when I think back on it, it was really about rule enforcement. And rule enforcement amongst, if I think about the two groups of people that left a mark on my life, it is the high school bullies, the big bold people. I was extremely short. Well, when I'm still short, and as I grow older, I'm getting shorter, I think. Anyway, but what I did learn was enforcing the rules despite the bullies trying to dissuade me from doing so, despite being seen as a square amongst the cool kids, right, in Round Pigs. Um, I guess what I then learned is how to be courageous. So courage was building from my previous experiences, but here it was a staring conflict in the face, confronting conflict, and not stepping back from it. So I learned, well, I'm telling you, I've learned how to be courageous because it doesn't mean I was not afraid. I was very afraid. But I had to stand up to the influential kids at school. And what was even more important as a leader, as sometimes you have people who look up to you, the people who follow you, the rest of my prefects who followed and wanted to see what I would do. See, it's easy to make rules. It's a different story altogether to enforce them, right? Same thing as dealing with teachers and principals and so forth, and then being true to what is required of you. And at this stage, I think I was beginning to learn that leading from the front is probably my style. Also, started to learn a lot about intuitive leadership. In grade 12, matric then, sent on leadership camps. And I mean, as a thought comes to mind, for those of you listening, I don't know if you ever heard of a leadership camp called Felt and Flay in Newcastle in KZN, and this is where they sent high school boys to learn what it is to become a leader. And the people who facilitate this training camp are people from the army, and so there I was, sent on this particular camp and learning from a diversity of students from all over South Africa who converged in this camp, and learning that, number one, leadership is not something that because your title says you're a manager or a leader, it doesn't automatically make you the leader. All right? Not the functional leader. You've earned the title to be called. But I learned in this camp how to be influential. And it was a week-long adventure camp, taking us through all kinds of things. And you can imagine what the army was like. Well, I don't know. I was never formally in the army, but that was my best experience. So it was early morning, freezing water, running like crazy, helping each other build things, walking and hiking, well, hiking 60 kilometers at a time, and so on and so on and so on, and learning how to deal with pain. But the key would be is learning about team spirit. That was the other thing that I came away with in my matric year, was learning about team spirit and understanding that individuals and individual efforts, all being very noteworthy, are not as powerful as the combined effort of a team that is in synergy. And oh well, yeah. Oh, Shanasa, you do know, yep. But when I look back at it, I now think about it with fond memories. I tell you what, while I was doing it, it wasn't such a fond memory, and I wasn't very happy with my principal who sent me at the time. So fast forward to after finishing varsity and starting work and working for quite a few years. I eventually ended up in a management role. And, first and foremost, this was being a manager in Springs in the early 1990s. Very interesting kind of neighborhood, and also the type of people that attended this particular company at the time. So, very, very quickly appointed as a manager, but now these were my peers, people that I worked with and we socialized with now they had to contend with the fact that suddenly I am now the manager. And in the vernacular, I am suddenly the boss of the department. So these were people that were very, very diverse in academic qualification, different races, different ages, different backgrounds, different political persuasions, even. You had the moderates in between, and then you had the rights, the people on the far right, and you people on the far left. And I had them in the mix in this particular, and this was a technical team. And, you know, different personalities. And interestingly enough, I think I started having to deal with managing people that were nearly twice my age at that stage, and and still gaining their respect was so important. I remember was sent on a course, the Anton van der Post course, and he spoke about these particular personality traits that people have, or traits as some people call them. And he made the point that when we observe people, and whatever we perceive them to be begins to put them into different categories. It's probably one of the most enjoyable workshops that I've been on, and I still remember it to this day. And there I was, late 20s, and going on this course and doing it. And and the reason I bring it up, I mean, I remember the personality types, and I've done many other management courses, leadership courses. I coach leaders and so forth. But the key would be these types have really just stayed with me as I look at people, because it was very experiential. He taught that we needed to trust our guts and how we see people, how we read people. And whatever they appear to be, that first instinct, it kind of gives us an idea of where these people are from. So literally, I mean, these four categories were amiable people, people who like to socialize, the types of people who, when you start to have a conversation with them, first want to find out about your family, how your weekend has been, and they want to be given an opportunity to also talk about how their weekend has been and how their family is doing and what is the latest and the greatest. And these are the types of people that if you do not give them the space to talk about what is latest and greatest socially first, to be able to sit down, have a conversation like that, is like, if you, on the other hand, are a driver type of personality, right? Which means you're rather more goal oriented. Okay, I want to talk to you, and this is the reason, and can we talk? If you put these two personalities together, the driver has to learn one thing very importantly. If he wants the amiable person to get on board with him, is to be able to first sit, swallow, and go, how was your weekend? How's the family? And sit and patiently listen to all of that. All it takes is 5 minutes. And if you spend that 5 minutes well, you have somebody who's now ready to engage with you. So already touching on drivers, no, you don't start, okay, how are you necessarily? You don't approach them. You say, listen, I'd like to speak to you about this. You declare your agenda. I need you to make a decision on this, that, and the other. What do you think? And bang, 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 bang. Off you go. You haven't wasted their time in terms of that. So then the other two were expressive people who are passionate, emotionally engaged in everything that they do, and they communicate. They express themselves to the world. If they're upset, they wear their hearts on their sleeves. You can see, that they're either upset or they're happy, they're ecstatic. And so therefore, you never need to guess what's on their mind, but you know when they are either engaged or disengaged. And it doesn't necessarily mean just because they're expressive meant that they were necessarily extrovert. They could be expressive introverts. I had an expressive introvert in my team not so long ago. And so you appeal to them, when you want to inspire them, you tap into their level of enthusiasm and excitement for something, and you'll find they are aligned. Now, lastly, the other group of people are the analyticals. And the analytical people never revealed. They're the most poker faced people you can find. Left brain orientated, always calculating and rational. And they have this wooden expression while they are calculating. It's not that they aren't friendly, it's just that they want to think first. And it's amazing. They want to think first before actually showing what they think. So the emotion is a little further behind. And I share this because this is really the quadrant, the tool that I got to use when I was leading this team and really starting to cut my teeth within a corporate space. And I follow this. It just appealed to me. I internalized it, and I could see I had some good results from all of this. Dealing with and besides, in my team, I had every one of these well represented. So it was a great way to actually be able to have some sort of a guideline in terms of seeing people, because I tell you what, people, and this is my current belief when it comes to people, is that every time you meet somebody new and you work with them, you can never imagine that you've ever met somebody like them and treat them in exactly the same way. You've got to be curious enough to know that you're starting from zero. With every new person you meet, you're starting from zero, and to be curious in terms of, okay, so what would engage this person? What is the vision? What vision do they have for themselves? What is their mission? What is their purpose that they think that is central to their lives? But anyway, I did this for quite a while in a technical capacity, and the department was actually a process technology department. But when I think back, centrally speaking, what was my learning here about? It was learning how to make decisions. And why I raise that today is, many times we hesitate. We want to be all inclusive in terms of second guessing ourselves when we need to make a decision. Do I have enough information to make a decision? Do you wait until, now depending on your categories, if you're highly analytical, you'll wait for something close to 100%. Expressive will say, well, 40%, well, I feel good, so let's go and try. And amiable people say, okay, who's doing this with me? As long as I'm doing this with people, I'm hopping onto this bus and I'm doing it. And the driver personality says, where's this bus going? Is it going in the direction I want it? I'm hopping on. And so therefore I'm going to do it. But so we make decisions, and we arrive at decisions in so many different ways. And we think that when we don't make a decision, that we haven't made a decision. Well, not making a decision is actually a decision in itself. So, central to not making decisions is the fear of failure. I mean, I remember as the person responsible for that department, the biggest project that we ran was nearly R500 million worth. So the types of advice, recommendations, decisions that we made around this plant refurbishment was going to have a huge impact on the organization. But, decisions had to be made. It's like either yes or no, you do that. And you learn from all of that, and your confidence grows. And the key to being decisive is to settle in your mind that what you know at that stage is the best information that you have at hand, and you're following your best guess. And of course, I'm not talking about autocratic leadership. I'm talking about you've spoken to several people. Have you received input from the team, from associates, and so forth, and therefore you make the decision. I think the governing thing here is the time it takes for you to make that decision, which drives whether or not you're decisive or not. I mean, look, everybody wants to consult with those around them and get inputs. But it's how long you take in terms of getting those inputs before you make decisions. So as a leader, you set the promised land, the destination, you set where you want to go, and then you inspire the team to implement strategies and plans to achieve that goal. And along the way, you've got to uh, decide. And sometimes when you hit barriers and so on, what are you going to do about those barriers? What tactics you're going to employ. In any case, just before we run out of time, just to cap this conversation around my leadership journey in the last while, since I've been in the last 17 and a half years, I've had the opportunity to share on boards of directors and also to chair some of these boards and also chair some committees. And so what I've learned is how to, I don't know if for those of you that know me, when I was much younger, I was pretty much the driver personality. But I've learned how to become a facilitator, coordinator, somebody who co-creates vision and co-creates strategies for people around that are serving with me. And I think the learning at the very heart of all of this is in these types of fora or forums, I've learned how to sell ideas rather than make the decision myself and inspire those to follow, but to sell the ideas, to influence opinion, and to be supportive. And that, in a nutshell, I don't know how much of a nutshell, but yes, in a nutshell, is really my leadership journey. And this has been just a testimonial. And, Shanaz, are you still there? Have I
Yes, I'm
bored you to
still here
death?
and I'm listening, taking notes.
I don't know if what I've just shared, and I call it testimonial specifically. I have not consulted, except the framework that I still love up to this day. I haven't consulted theory in terms of just what I think about leadership and my own experience over here. Yes, was there anything that I said this afternoon that actually resonates with you in any particular way, or is there something that you would like to just kind of put the icing, the cherry on the cake here?
Hi, yes, I actually attended a leadership course when I was in the UK, and in black leadership in white organizations. But I mean, they focused on leadership and coaching, and so your style of leadership is sort of very similar to mine. They actually call it, I don't distributive leadership, so it's not, so it's not like the autocratic, and I think that that's the kind of style that I follow as well, and it is very challenging, because, like I said, you have to facilitate, but you're also not there to please everyone. And I think that it's something that you grow into, and it was really great listening to how you've grown into that. And there are different areas that I need to work on as well. But yeah, it's been we're not the autocrats. We allow and empower and facilitate the process. I think is what I can definitely resonate with. Yeah.
Yes, and just to add on, as you were saying, it's you never, arrive in a way. It's always a journey of growth. It's understanding that so many people think that you. The great thing about leadership, there's always uncertainty around who you're dealing with, and having that intense interest in finding out what it is, just like whatever memory it triggered for you. And I mean, I like the distributive leadership, and I mean, many people would call it whether it's situational, whether it's functional, combining. So it's not one style. It's a blended approach that allows you to inspire and motivate and achieve goals through others. And I actually, on air, want to invite you, Shanaz. Would you like to do a testimonial next week?
Yes, I can do that. Yeah. in terms of my leadership.
If that's what you want to talk about, but anything else that you would like to share, just something that lays very close to your heart.
Yes, I can do it. I think I'd like to do it in leadership, and maybe my role as a female leader, and
Mm-hmm.
some of the challenges with that, as well as within, I can relate to both sort of government, but also sometimes corporate as well. So yeah, I can do that.
Ah, excellent, wonderful. Looking forward to it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Julia and Melissa, for joining us. And for the rest of you who listen to this podcast, I hope it's really useful. It's down to earth, it's practical. And I'm hoping that something will resonate within you and uncover that bit, that has been sitting there either dormant or you're active and you're inspired to want to share. But be the leader today. Have courage and make decisions. Bye for now, everyone.